Today, we're talking about a different house hacking strategy called ADUs or accessory dwelling unit. Now, these are also called in law units or granny units. Regardless of what you call it, it's an opportunity to earn extra income with your existing home and, quite frankly, increase its value when you go to resell it. So, today we're going to cover the FHA guidelines on what the qualifications are for an ADU. So, in order for it to be an ADU, different examples of what an ADU is, it could be a living area over a garage, like an extra bedroom or something like that. It could be a living area in a basement. It could be a small addition to the primary house. A lot of times they're like what you would call a tiny house in the backyard or something like that, or a pool house if you lived in that kind of area where you had pools and pool houses. Or it could be a manufactured home that's considered real property, which means that it's affixed to a permanent foundation on the land that you own that exists on your property. So, really, the reason we're talking about this is because, when the economy gets tough and home prices are high, um, and all prices are high, you're looking for different ways to earn extra income. And there's a lot of folks, if you're already a homeowner, there's a lot of folks taking out small loans out of their house, using a little bit of the equity and building these ADUs because they generate monthly income. And again, in addition to it generating the monthly income, it's also going to increase the value of the property when you go to sell it or if you go to sell it. So, yeah, as I mentioned, homes with an accessory dwelling unit, they do sell for more. So, in some cases, like in the case of FHA, if you have a home with an accessory dwelling unit, it's actually considered a duplex or a 2-unit property. And we covered this when we did the 2 to 4 unit house hacking on FHA. And FHA is really the only one that that considers it a duplex, which is pretty important when it comes to the qualifying guidelines. And then we're going to go through each. We're going to talk about Fannie Mae conventional, Freddie Mac conventional, VA, and USDA as well. Those will be coming out in the upcoming days and weeks. Now, ADUs are really a zoning issue. You you have to check with the building department or the building zones, the zoning department in your community, to determine whether or not you can put an ADU on the property. Now, I lived in California for a long time, and the county of Los Angeles passed actually a local ordinance, changed the zoning laws to allow ADUs because there wasn't any more land to build property. So they were allowing these accessory dwelling units, so that so basically they could get more tax revenue probably, but so that people could go in there and build these things to create extra income. And this is definitely becoming more common. Just recently, this is actually an article from this year, from 2023. Washington is actually passing a law that would allow up to 2 ADUs on a single family residence that's zoned for single family. So zoning laws and building laws will determine whether or not you can have a duplex or multifamily on one piece of property, and it has to do with the size of the lot, and the amount of room between houses, basically. But there's a lot of states right now that are looking at this as an alternative to the lack of new homes for sale. So maybe you're bringing, again, the reason they used to call them granny units or in-law units is because if you have family, or quite frankly, it could be your adult kids coming back and they want to live with you, and you don't necessarily want them under your roof. So you build a small accessory dwelling unit, and you either rent it out or you can move family into it essentially. So what are the characteristics of an ADU? So typically a 2 to 4 unit multifamily house, that's built at the time of construction. It's already zoned multifamily, and they're building 2 units on the same place at the same time. They're usually identical, they're usually attached. Sometimes they can be detached, so that they're not sharing a wall, but usually they're built at the same time. Whereas an accessory dwelling unit is typically built or added on later, and it's usually inferior. It's usually smaller than the primary unit. So kind of think like the main house with a little house in the backyard or on a different piece of the property. And that's typically what the characteristics are of an ADU. That's the biggest thing that makes it stand out. Now, the FHA guidelines would consider this a unit for loan qualifying purposes. So, if you were to buy a home that had an accessory dwelling unit, you would actually be using FHA duplex guidelines, 2 unit housing guidelines. And again, if you build this ADU and you're refinancing your home as a with an FHA loan, it's now considered a duplex. Now, luckily, FHA guidelines, single family and duplex, there's not a whole lot of difference. It only gets a little bit different if you have 3 or 4 units with an FHA loan, but essentially, 1 and 2 units are the same as far as the qualifying guidelines go. Now, in order for it to qualify for an ADU, in order for it to qualify for an accessory dwelling unit, it has to. Now, these are FHA guidelines, and every single agency, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, VA, USDA, everyone has a little bit different guidelines. They're very, very similar, but they have different nuances. Some include things and some exclude things. But for an FHA loan, if you were to want to refinance a home or buy a home, and this is important if you're buying a home with an ADU, because you want to make sure that it has these things, because they're going to ask for more, a higher sales price if it has an accessory dwelling unit. Now, it has to have a separate kitchen. It has to have a sleeping area, like a place where you can sleep. It has to have a bathing area or a bathroom, and it has to have bathroom facilities. So toilet, sink, shower, things like that. Now, the kitchen and bedroom requirements, it must include a sink with potable running water. So it has to have a sink. It doesn't say anything about countertops or cabinets or anything like that, but it has to have a sink like you would expect in a normal house. Also, it must have a sleeping area. Now, not all guidelines are requiring this sleeping area, but for FHA, it has to have like a sleeping area or a separate bedroom. It doesn't say in the guidelines whether it has to have a door or anything like that, but it does have to have something separate from the kitchen and the bathroom. So kitchen, bathroom, bedroom. I mean, when you think about if somebody's going to live in there, they have to have all of the amenities that would allow them to live a normal, healthy, and safe dwelling place, like a place to stay and a little place to call their own. It doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to have living rooms and all this stuff, but it does have to have these basic minimum things. Now, this is sort of an important thing. If you are going to have an ADU and you want to use that income, say, to qualify for a refinance or even to qualify for anything, for any type of mortgage loan, you need to report the rents on your income tax. Now, a lot of people will just rent it out and they'll take cash for it, and they don't really have lease agreements or anything like that, or they don't report it as rental income. If you're not reporting it as rental income, then it's just income, and it's not going to show up on your pay stubs, so it's not going to be able to be used when you try to qualify. Like there are certain things, to be safe. If you're going to have a rental unit, whether it's short term or long term, you want to make sure that you're reporting those rents on your tax return, or to a mortgage underwriter, that income really doesn't exist. And that could hurt you in the end if you need that extra income in order to qualify for whatever you want to do with your home, pull out equity, do home improvements, do anything like that. Now, when it comes to ADUs, there's a lot of different uses. Again, if you already own a home, taking equity out of your home, building an ADU is going to increase its value, and it's going to increase your cash flow. It's going to increase your monthly income. Depending on what area you're in, this could be a significant increase in your income. So these things are tricky. Again, anytime the guidelines are different from one agency to the next, and anytime it's outside of the box, forget about going to a call center lender. If you see a commercial on TV, they're not going to have any clue on how to help you with this, and they're going to end up giving you bad advice potentially, or they're not going to give you complete advice, because a lot of these big online mortgage lenders just have kids sitting in a call center answering phones, and they really don't have any idea what the underwriting guidelines are. So it's super important that you work with an expert. Make sure you work with somebody. If you know you're interested in ADUs, ask them what their experience is with ADUs, because what you want is somebody who's going to present you with all of your options, not just tell you yes, no, or here's your one option, because there's always more than one option. So somebody who's experienced is not going to sell you. They're going to educate you, and they're going to give you all of your options, and they're going to give you their opinion on which one might work best for you. And quite frankly, your option usually chooses you. You don't usually choose your option, because there's different qualifying guidelines for everything. And usually one or two, like if it's not in a USDA eligible area, you can't use USDA. If you're not a veteran, you can't use VA. So then do you use Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, or do you use FHA? So we've created a resource for you. I actually built this resource back in 2007 to help consumers understand and navigate the mortgage market without having to rely on talking to a mortgage salesperson in order to get accurate answers. So findmywayhome.com, there's a link down below if you have any questions at all. You have a couple of options when you go on the website. You can either have us match you with somebody who lives in your area, or you can search our directory of mortgage professionals. You can watch their videos, and you can see what their personality is, what their experience is, and you can choose who you want to work with. So that's it for FHA, brief overview of FHA accessory dwelling unit guidelines. And I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions at all, you can drop them in the comments below. If you find this information helpful, please subscribe, like it, and tell your friends about it if they're thinking about adding an ADU onto their property or trying to buy a home with an ADU. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.